Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Wednesday. Rick Bozich joining us. Bob Kravitz is on assignment, as they used to say back in the old news days. Rick, how are you, Rick?
I'm good. How are you doing, Jim?
Cannot complain. Getting through the bowl season. Kentucky had a big bowl win, comeback win over, who was it? They played Iowa?
Iowa, yeah. Purdue and Kentucky didn't really think Iowa was such a big deal like they looked in the first game of the season.
Yeah, fun. And then the Big Ten ends up with a winning bowl record, 6-4, and the SEC will have a losing record at 6-7, but they'll have the two best teams, obviously, in the in the country. So take from that what you will. Anything from the bowl season that jumped out at you?
I really have a hard time taking too much from them because in a lot of games. There's so many different players that are missing, and we don't know, if the teams are really the teams other than just in the playoff thing. Like last night, I think LSU played Kansas State and got routed, and they played a wide receiver at quarterback because all their quarterbacks were either transferred or injured or whatever. The biggest thing I guess I take away with is there's still such a big gap between Alabama and Georgia and Clemson and those kinds of teams and the rest of college football. When you get into the playoffs, the semifinal games are always bad. I mean, they're one-sided. Cincinnati wasn't good enough to beat Alabama, as we suspected, because we saw Cincinnati against Indiana. And I thought Michigan would give Georgia a better game than that, but they were outmanned, and that wasn't much of a game either.
Yeah, and it makes the Big Ten wonder. I'm like, where do you have to go? Because you're not there. This is a level where you have to be, and they're not there. Because if Michigan was the best that they had, they're not at the and there could be a third SEC team better. I don't know, but there's no question. Year after year, the SEC has got the top two teams, and that's not fun for anybody. Nobody wants to see that anymore.
Yeah, I mean the TV ratings I think were down. I saw like by 2 million. It'll be interesting to see what they're like Monday night because it's basically just the SEC championship game playing in the heart of Big Ten country. And what you really see is that, everybody talked about Michigan's defense and how good their defensive line was with Aiden Hutchinson, and I forget the name of the other guy, and they were no factor. I mean, they really were no factor. And when you look at the quality or the talent of the linebackers and to me of the linemen and those elite SEC teams and everybody else, it's just a big gap. And, Michigan didn't get much of a pass rush on Stetson Bennett and really couldn't run the ball the way they normally do against Georgia's defense. And we've seen it with so many different teams and so many different coaches that it's not just scheme related. It's just the other teams have better players.
Closer to home, you had an article not too long ago talking about the improved teams. Indiana, obviously not one of them at 2-10. I was talking about it just a little bit ago. The genesis of some of their biggest problems, offensive line, zero change made there in any way whatsoever. That really makes you just kind of scratch your head and wonder, okay, well, what are you thinking is the problem? Since it sure seemed like that was a problem. I don't know how they move forward without changing anything there and expecting something different.
I agree. It's puzzling to me that the only change so far, I believe, on the staff has been offensive coordinator, correct?
Yes, sir.
I don't know enough about the technicalities of football to know whether Darren Hiller is or isn't a good offensive line coach. Tom Allen obviously thinks that he is, but the results haven't been there for several years. And I know they have a few freshmen coming in, I think, as recruits. I know they have the kid from Fort Wayne and maybe another guy, but I don't think they went in the portal and got any offensive linemen. And so I agree with you. I'm a little mystified of how they think that's going to be better. They must believe just another year of experience or weight training or whatever, or a change in scheme in whatever reasons. But the offensive line was so, and it wasn't just last year, really, even the year when they went 6-2, they couldn't run the ball. And now who's going to be the starting running back next year?
I don't know.
The kid from Auburn, he seems like more of a situational back. They got I think there's another one who came, and I don't know. It's interesting. You don't know who the quarterback really is going to be. I guess it'll be Tuttle, but I don't know.
That's
I'm surprised there hasn't been more change.
well, there's Keegan mentioned earlier that there's been talk from Reese Plumlee of Ole Miss
Right.
uh, potentially coming to Indiana, but that's not. I don't know if that's a problem solver. It's a name, but I don't know that it's a problem solver.
Right.
But they'll certainly have to deal with that. Also, something I saw in regards to college basketball in North Carolina State. Well, I don't want before I jump. Purdue, big jump for them this year. Jeff Brom, 9 wins. So they hadn't done that since what, like 2008, I think.
Right.
It had been a while. So everybody wondering, when's Jeff Brom going to start making his money? Well, you got 9 wins. And if you can do it again next year, then that'll be the telltale sign because Tiller did it. That's been a decade ago. But that's what people from Purdue have been wanting to see what they got this year.
Yeah. With Purdue, I guess I'd say two things. One is he made changes. Defense was not great the year before, and he brought in a new defensive coordinator, I think from the FCS level, and made a difference. And they had some nice wins. I mean, they won at Iowa, obviously. That's a nice win. They beat Tennessee in the bowl game, and that was one of the better bowl games I watched the entire bowl season. That was a really entertaining game. It was a great advertisement for Purdue football. My question, I guess, for Purdue going forward is, they lose Bell and they lose Karlaftis. That's their best offensive and defensive player, especially Bell. How much will that affect them? But the one thing I've seen from Brom is he can develop a quarterback. I mean, he had quarterbacks at Western Kentucky who were no-name guys who put up huge numbers. He got David Blau is one of them, who's now with the no, that's Purdue. He's Purdue. There's another guy. I forgot the guy's name. The first guy at Western. The second guy at Western was Mike White, who came from South Florida, who really wasn't very good, and he had a great year under Brom. And now he's done the same thing. That guy that finished the year for him this year, he's a former walk-on, right? O'Connell, is that his name?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's doing as a quarterback coach, and that the proof is in the results after a while.
And he has Brian Brom alongside of him.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, I mean, Jeff learned from you were around. I mean, Jeff learned from Howard Schnellenberger, and football has changed and football has evolved, but there's some basics that linger through the years. And Howard Schnellenberger knew how to pass the ball a long time ago, learned it in the NFL, refined it with the Miami Hurricanes, and then Jeff also played for Bobby Ross, who was a really good coach. He was with, I think, Bill Walsh briefly. He might have been with Shanahan briefly. I mean, he's been around some guys who know how to coach the game, and let's be honest, Purdue's quarterback play has been good, and it's not like they've had, Lamar Jackson or Dan Marino or John Elway or somebody. He's just had guys.
It's been better than the players,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah,
he's gotten more from the talent than what they actually have.
Yeah, and his niche is, I mean, he's gotten good receivers. I mean, Bell's not the only one. He had Rondell Moore, and he's got the kid down here from Louisville, Milton Wright. He's had some other receivers, and I'm sure he's recruited some more. And he's a decent tight ends, and Schnellenberger was really big on tight end play. And so there's something to be learned from what Brom's done. And he's got the advantage. We have to point. He's in the Big Ten West, which is definitely easier than the Big Ten East. That's the biggest problem Indiana has. They're in that division with, and there's like 4 schools that clearly invest more money, have more tradition, have bigger and better stadiums and facilities, and care about football a lot more than Indiana does. And it's been that way for decade after decade, and it's not going to change in a year or two. For Indiana to change that, it's going to have to be a slow, gradual process of moving up the ladder. And I think what's been hard for Indiana is for the 2019 and 2020, it seemed like they were moving up the ladder. But this year was such a dramatic fall backwards of, 2-10, but really a non-competitive 2-10, that it makes people wonder, how valid 2019 and 2020 were.
Yeah, and then my question is, why does the Big Ten refuse to acknowledge the fact that they need to do something about realignment for its own benefit, to make it a more appealing product, to make it would just, there's so many benefits to it. And it's not like that you have to physically pick up the schools and move them. That's what they act like. That they're acting like you have to physically pick these schools up and move them, that this is so difficult when it's not. And I don't understand the reluctance to even acknowledge the fact that it's there. When that's basically when you hear Warren talk, it's like there's just no acknowledgement to me.
Part of it might be that I'm not sure they know what the other solution would be. If you can't go east and west, then what do you have to do? Go north and south?
I mean, I don't even care if you can put an East team in the West for all I care. I don't even care what you call it. Just don't call it. You can't call it leaders and legends, though. That did not go over well.
No, I think for a long time, Jim, they thought Nebraska was going to solve that problem. Nebraska was going to give them a signature program in the West, and it hasn't developed that way at all. And I guess a lot of them would say the only person, the school that suffers the most from it, or the schools that suffer the most from it, are, Indiana and Rutgers, and they don't really care. I mean, I think it's fairly clear that the Big Ten, whatever's best for Michigan and Ohio State, is what the Big Ten's going to do. And Michigan and Ohio State have thrived into the situation, so they see no reason to change. The East has won every Big Ten championship football game, right?
Yep. Yeah, and that has been Ohio State with, I think, 80% of those. Michigan now has one, and what does Penn State have one?
I think Michigan State had one. Didn't Michigan State make the playoffs?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're right. I think you're right.
One year where they
forgot about that.
Penn State, I don't think it's ever done it. I don't think they have. I don't think
they lose that year. They lost that year. Okay, so Ohio State has probably 3 of them, or whatever it is. It's not. I mean, five. I mean, it's crazy. Basketball, Purdue, of course, losing. Michigan losing. The 2 top teams at the top. Purdue, a little surprising.
1 and 2
going down. 1 and 2. No one. I'd like to have had money on that. No one would have predicted that. I certainly did not. Didn't one of those losses come at home?
Yeah, the last one did to Wisconsin.
Yeah,
the first
team that Indiana had down by 22 at Wisconsin.
Yeah, that was a bad loss. Purdue, I think, will be okay. The team that's not going to be okay probably is Michigan. And everybody forgets. I think Michigan was ranked ahead of Purdue in the initial AP poll. They were like 5th in the country, and the Boilermakers were maybe 6th.
Well, everybody thought Michigan was going to be we all thought Michigan was going to be the team based off of last year. Didn't know exactly how good Purdue was going to be athletic wise, and still starting to wonder now. Zach Edey, while gigantic, is very immobile. He's not a very mobile guy.
Right.
And so, but his size does a lot to overcome, but hey, if you can obviously they can be outplayed. They were beaten by a team that is not overly athletic, and I don't know how else to describe
what's
Wisconsin.
Interesting about the Big Ten is before the season started, I think everybody thought there were 4, maybe 5 clear-cut candidates to be Big Ten Player of the Year. It was Trace Jackson Davis, Hunter Dickinson, E.J. Liddell, Jaden Ivey, and Travion Williams. And if you voted today, it'd probably be Johnny Davis of Wisconsin or Keegan Murray of Iowa. And I saw Mike Pegram had a pretty good note that both those guys were 3-star recruits who weren't ranked among the top 100 in their class. So that shows you can find guys. And I mean, this kid at Wisconsin he's been unbelievable. I mean, they didn't just beat. They've got some other quality wins. They won the Maui Invitational, remember? And he's in the hunt to be like a first-team All-American. He's been really good.
And somebody like Race Thompson. Race Thompson is almost. I wish I could have his numbers in front of me, but he has to be almost averaging a double-double right now, because he's almost solid. Scoring one. Now he's not up and down like Trace Jackson can be, but he's been the most consistent player, it seems like, at times for Indiana down below, even more so than Trace Jackson has been.
Well, I think that was the most pointed comment after the loss to Penn State was from Mike Davis about Trace Jackson Davis only having 5 rebounds, and can't happen. I mean, that's one thing, the really elite big men do is they take care of business offensively and defensively, and then rebounding. And
They're averaging the exact same. Trace Jackson is averaging 0.2 more rebounds per game than Race.
Well,
8.
the one killer possession in the game was there was that possession late in the game where Penn State got 3 offensive rebounds. I mean, they had the ball for like 2 minutes there. Remember that play?
Yep.
Yeah, that killed them. But it's a big 4-day stretch for Indiana. They got Ohio State at home on Thursday night, their first chance to get a signature win because they don't have one yet. And then you got Minnesota at home on Sunday, and you got to win that game. Illinois blew out Minnesota last night in Minneapolis. So that's until they start getting some road wins, they have to win every home game to maintain their place. Because I think Lenardi dropped them down to like last 4 in or last 4 buys or something after the loss to Penn State. That wasn't a good loss.
No, it was a horrible loss. But Indiana's season as it progresses, until they find, they've got Trace Jackson and Race down low. They've got their deals going on together. Xavier, he's doing his thing, but his thing, I think, involves people like Miller Kopp and Parker Stewart, who have not gotten involved to the level that they found a comfort role. That position, it just doesn't seem comfortable no matter who's in it yet for Indiana's offense to be a completely flowing machine. And that seems to be, to me, what is preventing them from being better. They just don't have a flowing offense.
No, I agree. And I think that a lot of people have discussed that over the last few days. And I've seen a lot of suggestions that might be time for a change in the starting lineup to the Kopp and Stewart's skill sets are too similar that they're both basically just catch and shoot guys for the most part. Kopp's shown a little bit more ability to drive the ball inside and get maybe a 12-foot shot. But if you got 2 guys out on the wing that people don't really have to worry about driving the ball, it makes it too easy for the defense. And you might have to go to, I know at times he played Johnson and Finney against Penn State, and I don't know whether that's the answer or Galloway's the answer. I've seen people advocate for Bates, but he didn't play very well at all against Penn State. And, Geronimo seems he's productive when he's in there in terms of getting rebounds and stuff, but he's not ready, in my opinion, in terms of handling the ball and creating shots for other people. I mean, a lot of people, when you look at players, you judge them by what they do for themselves, but the really good players do things for themselves and they do things for their teammates. And Geronimo's ball handling and passing skills, to me, are not yet at the point where he's, a major plus on offense.
Yeah, looking in Big Ten games only, Miller Kopp has shot 0 free throws. Has gotten to the line 0 times. Rob Finney has only shot 3. Finney 2. Race Thompson 2. They're not getting to
in 3 Big Ten games.
That's in 3 big. I know it's only 3, but that's 3 Big Ten games, and especially with Race Thompson being down low, how in the world he's only shot 2 free throws is beyond me. Parker Stewart 0, like I said, and Miller Kopp 0. So you've got 2 starters who have not even been to the free throw line yet.
That tells you they're not driving the ball and not putting any pressure on the defense.
Exactly, and not that it's like it's just a one. It's either going through Trace or Racer, and that's it with Xavier. And there is no wing action for Indiana. I don't know what the wings are supposed to do in this offense, but there's not production coming from it.
Yeah, and I think we've seen, and I've talked about this before, just in his recruiting. I think that's an acknowledgement from Mike Woodson that he knows that needs to change because their top recruit, Hood Schifino, is a guy who drives the ball and is good at he's a point guard who's better at setting other people up than he is for himself. And that Caleb Banks, the kid out of Georgia, is a forward who can drive the ball as well as shoot it. And CJ Gunn is probably known a little bit more as a shooter, but I think he's capable of driving the ball, and he knows that needs to be fixed. You've got to you got to have guys who, when they have the ball in their hands, put pressure on the defense, who can beat their defender and make somebody else then have to make a decision of like, am I going to let this guy, get a shot off, or am I going to switch onto him and leave the defense vulnerable in another spot? And they don't. I'm talking about players like Troy Williams or Yogi Ferrell or Victor Oladipo or Sheehy or whoever you want to talk, guys who could drive the ball and put pressure on the defense, and they don't have a bunch of those guys.